Coming to you from Star Studios in Calvert, Texas, this is Coffee with a Sign Painter, a podcast hosted by me, sign painter Sean Starr. Our groovy intro music was written and recorded for this show by Fergal Lawler of the Cranberries. Thanks, Fergal.
And how are you? Yeah, some killer work you've been posting lately.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Last year was crazy for everybody.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I stayed busy throughout last year. So that was nice because, you always worry when something large is happening, how bad it's going to affect you. But we got through it. And then about 6-7 weeks ago, it just blew wide open and people were calling. Conversations I had over a year ago started resuming, and everyone's coming out of the woodwork again. So I think I think we'll be able to catch up, which we're going to have to play some catch up and all of that. But I think it'll work.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was when the first lockdown hit, like around a year ago, I was really worried. Like this is gonna be a really difficult year.
Yeah.
But last year, I mean, after the first lockdown, everything just like exploded, and I had too much work, and I was able to work a lot, and then I had enough money to realize this dream of mine, which is where I am now. It's my little studio, new sign shop here.
Okay.
So last year was really crazy for me in many ways. It was really good in many ways, but I also had like some challenges,
Sure.
So in the fall, I was super busy with work, and then I was working too much, so I got stressed.
Yeah.
So I had to go to like a stress coach and figure out how to work a little bit less. So first I got stressed, then my actually quite new wife decided to just like leave me. So I had a divorce on top of that stress.
Yikes.
And then, that led to some like general depression, which
understandable.
Which led to this sort of creative block, which was really tough on me. I just wasn't in the mood to be creative, I didn't,
for sure.
Didn't feel like it. And I had this new studio space. I had all the facilities. And then I had this block, and I was super sad and everything. And then on top of that, all the back pain came. So, in many years, last year was the best year for me and for my business. But personally, it was like really tough. But I'm getting back on
the best of times, worst of times.
Yeah, totally.
Isn't that a book quote?
In a year.
Yeah.
So it was, and now it's like, sometimes when life just treats you like this, you can like cry or you can laugh. And I'm like, I think I just laugh about it because
it's the only choice.
It's so silly, But,
Yeah. No, that's definitely the right approach. I mean, it's so I thought this was really interesting when we started talking about having you come on because, I've been around for quite a while, and I know a lot of the older guys that have been doing it a long time. We all knew each other through some of the really old forums and everything that are now gone. But it was really interesting to me because you're someone who I've followed your work through social media and been really intrigued about the stuff you're doing. But I don't know you. I don't really know anything about you. So I was like, oh, this is really cool opportunity to like get into like how you got started, what your motivation was, and all of that. So I'm really excited to kind of unpeel that.
Yeah. Well, I would love to talk about it because my path was, somehow a little bit, I had a bit of a bumpy road to where I am now. Okay. But so like where I am now is I have successfully been full-time sign painter for more than 5 years.
Okay.
And besides painting signs, I also do some design work. I do some teaching, and I do some talks, and I have published some books. So everything is evolving around science. So I'm really happy where I am, and I'm super, actually very grateful to be able to live like this. So like 90% of what I do is just painting signs, and the rest of all these things is like a small part of my business. But I am just like I'm a sign painter. That's my profession.
So what was the leaping point? Like, what were you doing prior? And then what got you into it?
So when I grew up, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. So I was like browsing around a lot of creative educations, worked in some graphic design, some photography, some printing, bookbinding, so some artwork, street art. And, I did a little bit of everything just to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And it was really difficult to sort of like, feel happy or, interested, keep my like focus in these different ways of working. So when I was in the beginning of my 30s, I'm 39 now, I started this education as a sign maker. And in Denmark, they call this education sign technician, which sounds super tough, like a super boring job. You don't want to be a sign technician, Yeah. But so basically, it's a sign maker. And
is that like the modern digital and all of that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same education as a sign painter, but they changed the name when you stopped painting signs. I think it was in the like 2003, 2004. They just made the new name for this education because they don't teach you how to paint signs at this education. But I started this education, and then I was super stoked to find that now I was able to work with something I've always loved, which is like typography or letters and type, and then to work with my hands. I've been trying to sit in front of the computer, and it just wasn't me. I worked for like 4 years as a painter, as a house painter, and I really liked this way of like working like sort of dynamic every day, but it was obviously like not so interesting to just paint white walls.
Yeah, right.
But I liked the way of working with my hands like this. And then when I started here, I was like, hey, now I'm able to combine what I like, work with my hands, and be sort of like in some kind of like movement. And then with typography and lettering as the main sort of subject. So after, so what I did is I started an apprenticeship as a sign maker, which is quite difficult to get a good apprenticeship here in Denmark because it's not a big industry. But I found an apprenticeship at a little sign company here in Copenhagen. It's called Skiltefabrikken, and it translates into the sign factory. And back in the days, all the sign companies in Denmark, they would be called sign factories. So like a small family business where I was able to learn all about how to design signs, produce signs, install signs. And what I really did, I was mainly doing installation because that's what I found was like more interesting than doing the design work, because I knew how to do the design work. And now I, as I said, I like this dynamic way of working. You're like always like kind of like moving or doing something, like working with your hands. And that is, I feel really comfortable in this. And so my interest in traditional sign painting, like painting signs with a brush, it came, actually one of the first things that trigged my like really interest in it was watching the trailer to the Sign Painters movie.
Okay.
And I mean, it was like maybe like 1.5 year into my apprenticeship, and somehow I saw this trailer at Vimeo or YouTube, and I was like, what is this? You know, what is this? Is this still a thing?
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew about sign painting when I was younger. I was doing graffiti, and some of my friends, they were doing the sign painter education, you know, while it was still like painting signs. And then I kind of like, I got more and more curious, like, is this possible to paint signs like this? And how do you do it? And I remember like making small pound patterns like this and bringing them home. And then on my living room, in my living room, I would paint like casuals from a font with a small brush, and then bike paint in a small tin like this, you know, like really shitty paint.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing.
All blobby and everything.
Yeah, it was horrible. But you know, I really wanted to get into it. So I was like just more and more curious. And as an apprentice at a sign company, you know, you just have to work and do what you're told. So it was a bit difficult to just, you know, how can you say, like explore this way of working. But now and then we had jobs where it made sense to paint it by hand. And I was always super pushy to do these jobs. And and if we had a job where you would use like a vinyl stencil, I was like telling them like, no, let's do it from a pound pattern, and I will paint it. I promise I will do it fast and stuff like this.
Did they give you some latitude to do that?
Yeah, they awesome. Did. They did. And I remember there was like one this. What do you call, like veteran car, like a Ford T from 1925. And we had to paint some gold lettering on this old car for a Danish bakery. And I was so excited, like, let's paint it by hand. And I ordered one-shot paint, and I made loads of samples on small steel panels and presented to my boss, and like, look, I can paint this, I promise you. And then she was like, it's gonna take too long. We'll do it in mask. I was so sad, and we did it all in like one day, you know. And if I were to paint like 3 sides on that truck, it would take me like 2 weeks. So I understand, you know. But I was just so excited to do it.
Sure. Yeah, but you know, that's an interesting point though, because there is the practicality aspect that occasionally, you know, will dictate how you approach something. And even those of us that just do paint and have for years, it's like there's still times where something will come up where it's like, well, I could paint it that way, but there's no way I can get paid what I need to get paid. So I'm going to paint it this way, you know?
Yeah.
But
it's
part of
like, yeah, it is. And I mean, fortunately, I've been able to just pass on work like this to my friends who have a modern sign company. Okay. But I mean, I just guide the clients, you know, to pick a different approach. But there's a lot of the modern sign making industry has a lot of super smart machines, and you know, and if you have a client and they want some lots of gradients and colors and photographs, it's like I can't paint it. You need to print it and call someone else.
So that brings up interesting thing to me. You know, a big part of the work I've seen you post in recent years is the gold leaf on glass, and some of it is just immaculate and beautiful. And I could definitely see that you have design background, because there's so much of it is just, it's spot on. How did you get involved in that, and how did you learn the process? Is there some old school science? You're in Copenhagen, correct?
Yeah.
So is there some old school people there who showed you, or how did you figure it out?
You know, actually, the first sign company I worked after finishing my apprenticeship, it was the oldest sign company of Denmark, and I was really curious to learn more about gold leaf, screen printing, and hand-painted signs. And I remember asking one of the old-timers, he must have been 70, and I was like, how do you do this gold leaf on glass? and he was like mocking me or like laughing, like, you can't do that. That must be vinyl, you know? I was like, no. See here, it's done in gold.
Yeah,
and he was
people
like,
are doing it.
Yeah, people are doing it. And he was like, no, I don't know. And I was like, what the fuck? How do they not know how to do this? And then I started like, obviously I saw all this gold leaf on glass on Instagram. I was like, man, I gotta learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And but the old timers here in Copenhagen don't know much about it. So a friend of mine, another sign painter, he's called Søren, and we shared a studio for 3-4 years.
Okay.
So he was also really eager to get into it, and we started gilding some signs together, and he was very
like doing test panels and stuff in the stuff.
Yeah, but also, we actually, one of the first signs we did was like a massive glass sign. We did like some like two-tone gilding with blends, and he was totally like initiating this. I was just helping on the side. And honestly, in the beginning, you know, I thought the process was like a bit too complicated. You know, I just wanted to do some casual stuff instead. But we got more and more into it, and he helped me a lot to, you know, learn how to do all the processes, you know, because, you know, reading a book, you can learn so much, but you need to just, you know,
over the years, there, you know, I've, whether it's been a letterhead meet or it's just been in some other person's studio or whatever, you know, they can show you something, or they're not even necessarily showing you, you're just observing them doing a step, and you're like, oh my God, that's it. That's totally the best way to do that. And those are the things that they might even be in like one of the old gold leafing books or something, but until you see it, it doesn't make sense to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And also like doing the gold leaf jobs on site, you know, one thing is doing it at your shop, and you can, you know, make some trial and error, you know, in like good circumstances. But next day you're gilding a window at a cafe with loads of like stress. And I think, you know, in the beginning, I made a lot of mistakes also on site, and I have been like razor blading off like 2 gilded windows because the gilt was clouded. You know,
it didn't last. Yeah,
it didn't. Yeah, I had to just like make it again. You know, and I was like telling the client like, yeah, there was some like flaws on the gold leaf. You know, I didn't tell them my water size was contaminated.
Yeah.
But so I learned the hard way, you know, and just a few years ago, doing a gilded window on site, I would be super nervous and make a lot of mistakes and never really happy with it. And now I can do the simple stuff in a day, you know, and I'm not, you know, so I don't make so many mistakes now. But it's like, it's the way to learn, you know, just gotta make all these mistakes, especially when you don't have like a full-on like a journeyman sign painter apprenticeship. You know, this is the way to learn nowadays. Unless you do like a lot of you know, workshops with Noel Weber and Dave Smith, which is
I think workshops definitely have their place, but it cannot replace just going out there and, you know, to a certain extent, banging your head against the wall and just like figuring it out. And I think the other thing too, that I found with myself over the years is, and I see this in some of the workshops, is, you know, if for instance, you're going to someone as advanced as Dave Smith, which, you know, I mean, top of the heap with the gold on glass. You know, this is a person who for decades has been refining the process, and on top of that has a large level of just natural talent and everything else. And I think for myself, what it took over the years was my early glass gilding jobs were very stressful to me because my expectation of like perfection, I just wasn't able to execute what in my head I wanted to execute. And what was really interesting is there were projects that I saw years and years ago up in Seattle and then later in San Francisco that when I first saw them, before I really got immersed in doing gold on glass, those looked flawless to me.
Yeah.
I went back and looked at them years later after I had done a lot of gold leaf on glass, and I was like, oh, well, my perception was those were perfectly executed, but they weren't, and none are. And so then it was like, oh, okay, I see what I did. I set this ridiculous standard that no one could achieve. And now that I'm seeing enough of it and doing enough of it, I'm able to spot and say, oh, okay, well, there's a little overlap seam in their gold too in this letter, all of that.
Yeah. I totally recognize this feeling, and I remember like doing a lot of like hand painted signs and some gold leaf work, and I was in London, and I was passing some like pretty simple gold leaf windows. And I was like, oh, here it is, the real deal, like proper gold leaf on glass. And I would come up and I would look closely, and everything looked, not like shit, but it looked like really like some parts were chipped, and, the small letters were like really bumpy, and the varnishing job was super shitty. And I was like, my God, this is how it's supposed to look, from a distance, just like a couple of feet away, it looks perfect. But then when you inspect it, you see all these also the overlaps in the gold, or maybe some parts are a little bit cloudy or whatever. But that's how it.
But that's the point, I think, is as you work with it more and more, you're spotting all of the flaws in your own work and the little overlaps and all of that. And when you're around it constantly, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm seeing these flaws. But I think the average person, they walk past it and they're like, holy cow, what is that? That looks amazing. Yeah. But it's just, we kind of condition ourselves with, oh, okay, there's the flaw, there's the flaw, there's the flaw. Yeah. Which is part of what we have to do.
Exactly. I think it's really good. It's also about like training your eye. You analyze every like letter you draw or like paint, and you analyze all the brush work you do, and you train your eye to like constantly criticize yourself in order to become better at it. Yeah. And then, like, for example, if you're at a stressful cafe working and the gold is like flying everywhere every time everyone opens the door, you just do a different job than maybe when you're at the studio, you have.
And you can take 6 weeks to execute it and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the sort of the project also like defines the output. Yeah. And sometimes it's, imperfect is also quite perfect sometimes,
Yeah,
how it's supposed to be.
That's a very valid point too, is there are definitely projects over the years I've allowed myself to get a little bit looser with because it warrants it, and it the final effect is that much better because it is a little loose and it is a little more free form as opposed to just like perfectly or not. I mean, no one can paint perfectly, and that's part of what's great about it. But, sometimes we get so caught up in, the lines and the corners and all of that. It doesn't always suit the job.
No. Yeah, I quite early in my sort of sign painting career figured out, like, I shouldn't work too hard on making it look perfect, especially if you're painting digital design, and you paint it perfectly, you get down the ladder and you look up and it's like, this looks like
vinyl.
It looks like vinyl. What have I done? So especially when painting like fonts for a client, I tend to loosen up a bit and just like let it look more hand painted. And, at the end of the day, everyone's, happy about it.
Yeah.
But do you also feel like this sometimes when you're like designing something or you're painting something, you look at it and you think like, fuck, this is shit, I should fix this, I should fix that. And then you come the day after and you look at it and it's like, whoa, this is sick.
That happens to me on 99.9% of the jobs. I am not kidding. I would get so obsessed with one thing or like even a brush stroke or a color or whatever. And I'll be like, oh my God, maybe I should change that. Yeah. And then sure enough, you see it the next day and you're like, what was I thinking? This totally clicks, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So over the years, I've gotten better at that because I've learned to just be like, okay, take a deep breath. You're acting crazy. Let it go. And, you know, and then I let it go. And then I see it the next day and I'm like, see, you were right. You just let it go. But
exactly.
It's taken a lot of years to get better at doing that. But I still fall victim to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've also become better. And also sort of like, do you have this expression? I guess you do. It's called like pick your battles.
That's a common one here. Yeah.
You know, yeah. And it's the same, you know, you have to like, you know, prioritize like where to put that focus, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember, I remember once I did like this like sample of a gold leaf letter, which was sort of like, what do you call, like bended and like plastic and then gilded. And when I did this simple letter, by accident, I took the first sketch, which was like really raw. And I didn't notice until I made this gold leaf letter back on black background on glass and everything. And then I was like, fuck, I took the wrong sketch, you know, maybe I have traced it 2 times after that to make it more perfect. And then I looked at it and was like, this is perfect, you know. If it looked a little bit like wrong, but you know, it made it look so much better because it was not so overworked. It was just you know, pure, raw, honest, you know. And sometimes I see myself overwork things, you know. I trace the same layout 10 times, you know, and I analyze it and I spent so much time measuring and I painted. I was like, this is too clean, man.
You know,
like, I should just like.
You're making a really valid point, but I'll also counter that with, so if you come from a design background and you come from a background where you understand what you're doing incorrectly or not even incorrectly, that's the wrong word, maybe like less refined, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That is not the same as, you know, some of the work I've seen put out there where it's like they don't know. Yeah, you're just doing a poor execution. You're not, it's not designed properly or well.
No.
It's not executed, you know, loose versus very refined. It's just really poorly done. And that's not okay. That's, you gotta move past that.
Yeah, you gotta practice. Or you gotta learn. Yeah, but it's also something like you know, as we talked about with gold leaf, you know, you I think, you know, you train your eye to see things. And actually yesterday I had a visit from a quite renowned Danish type designer. And we started talking about like alphabets and letters and type designers. And, you know, we talked about this, like training your eye. And I've really, the more I work with this, the more I see how I'm able to train my eye to see how things are supposed to look good in layouts, in letter forms, in execution techniques and whatever. And then the more I work with it, I'm actually able to also make my hands, you know, fix it. So now
because you can identify it clearly.
Yeah, and then I know how to draw it also, you know, or paint it, or, you know. So it's I feel like, as probably Dave Smith does, like still, you know, feel like this, like I'm becoming better and better every day, you know. And it's such a satisfying, you know, feeling that all this work which I've done because I think it's fun, I love to do it, people pay me to do it, it's awesome. And then also on the side of that, I'm becoming a lot better. You know, what's magic? You know?
Yeah. But see, that's the core, I think, common denominator of everyone I've ever known who's done well at this trade is the constant pursuit of improvement. You know, where, you know, like training your eye, like a musician trains their ear, you know, it's just this constant pursuit of, I want to learn to do this even better. And, you know, there's some of the guys in their 70s and up that I've talked to, they're still in that. You know, they're still fascinated with what technique could I change or improve to get this result. And I think that's such a crucial trait for anyone entering into a craft like this.
Definitely.
Is that desire, that fire inside to become as good as you can be today, and then 5 years from now to be even better, and 5 years after that. If you don't have that, you're going to do mediocre work, and you'll get dragged into doing something else eventually, because it's that you're just not motivated to become really good at something.
Yeah, that's true. This is also what I've noticed at those letterhead meets I have attended. You know, it's like you know, we meet, we paint, and you know, we learn from each other. And sometimes if I'm like painting something or just like doing something, it could be the way I am cleaning my brushes or oiling them up or whatever. And then one like old time sign painter in his 60s from Australia or whatever comes over. It's like, so this is how you do that. I've always done it like this. I was like, how can I teach you anything? You know? It's like, you must know. But it's like, we learn from each other on so many levels, and between generations, and between also nationalities, you know. This is also something, you know, I've really learned both from traveling, but also from just, you know, social media. You know, it's like these sort of like differences, like in style and in sort of like attitude and techniques from you know, the local environments, you know, from Paris to Sydney to.
That's totally true. You know, when we were in Nepal filming last year, to see these little shops, and when I say little, I'm talking a lot like the size of most of our closets. You know, these guys in there, and just not only the tiny shop, but just the creativity and using, you know, this for paint and using this for brushes and using this for a mark out tool or whatever. And it's just, you know, I don't want to get hokey about it, but it's just like it's the human spirit, you know. It's like people just are inventive and creative and adaptive, and to see people in what most people in the West would consider very primitive conditions, but they're still showing up in the morning. They've got their list of clients with their jobs they got to get done. They're getting it all done. They have no access to supplies. There's no such thing as one shot in those parts of the world, but they're doing work, and there's signs everywhere, and the signs are awesome. You know, it's like just to see, like, to expand on what you're saying, you know, just to see that it's completely different, but it's completely the same.
And this is what's interesting, because you're able to connect with them instantly, even though they work so primitive. The way of working and the media and the outcome is so similar. You know, it's the same. You know. I have some paint. I have a brush. I use my hands to paint a sign, and then, you know. It's super interesting. And also, like, the more, you know, in the beginning, I wasn't able to tell a difference between, you know, London signs and Italian signs, or, you know, like the Argentinian style and the California style. And now, studying, analyzing, and working with it, I see all these like local differences. Like, my God. You know, I could spot, obviously the Feliciano style is easy to spot, but, you know, I can see, like, this is an Italian sign. I can tell it. It's that style. And this is for sure made in San Francisco, whatever, you know? And it's like, it's really interesting to see how I guess it's the same with like music or other creative fields of work, but it's really.
You know, that it's a really good point. You know, here in the United States, one of the styles that always fascinated me when I was younger it was referred to as the New Jersey style. And it was kind of this combination of lettering and airbrush mixed, and they would do these prismatic letters with shading, and just really really gorgeous lettering on trucks and things like that. And I think what ends up happening, because this is kind of what happened where I grew up in South Texas, there were some people that had moved in. One eventually became my father-in-law, that brought in all these techniques from the West Coast for custom paint, and that seeped into lettering and everything. That it kind of ended up dominating the style, because everybody got excited about it and was like, oh man, that's really cool. I had no idea you could do that. And so everyone started incorporating it. And then when I moved up to Seattle, when my father had passed away, you know, which is 2,500 miles northwest, you know, I got up there, and none of that style was not only embraced, but everybody up there was diving in head first, because Microsoft computers was now the big thing, and everyone was pushing for computer and getting away from paint. And, you know, that was a bad move for me, in that sense that, you know, I came from having zero computer background into a market where all of the shops were switching over to computers, and that was, we got our train going by here.
Okay, that's just
that's what you're hearing. But I mean, those styles, like you said, it's really fascinating. Like, there's these pockets where you can identify over time and say, oh, I bet you that guy's from that place, you know? Which I don't have enough familiarity with the European countries to be, I would never be able to spot the difference between Italian and English, I don't think.
No. And this is also because I have been around Europe. I have a lot of friends in the European cities, so I can see, you know, I see all the signs all the time, you know. But for example, what I notice is like how the lettering styles are also very like, you know, locally, and you know, can I say like the design styles are also very, you know, significantly like different in Australia than they are in Europe, than they are in America. And, you know, for example, like some of the Australian styles, which have been taught, you know, through trade schools and such for, I don't know, decades, hundreds of years. That style wouldn't be seen in Denmark, like never, you know. But it's just like how sign painting has evolved through like a century in Australia. And it's just, you know, in the beginning I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but now I can just say like, wow, I need to sort of make my signs fit Denmark, you know. I can't just go all like casual and block on everything. I need to do. Right. You know, I need to do signs that looks good in here in Copenhagen, and this is something I haven't thought a lot about when I started working, but like slowly I'm seeing it more and more, and it's like it makes totally sense like why my work looks like it does, but it's because I'm located in Copenhagen, Denmark. And then I see some sign writers in Barcelona, and I see like makes totally sense. Their work looks like this in Barcelona. I would never be able to sell a sign in Barcelona. And vice versa.
It's a very valid point. You know, like what you're mentioning about Australia is most of the stuff I've seen that comes from down there, and like the Dobell brothers are Australian. They're up in Canada now, but you know, very, very bright, bold colors, like basically what you see in a lot of beach communities. You know, like really bold, over the top, you know, bright colors, you know, which makes sense if you're in an area that's got a lot of sunshine. It's like,
totally.
But
and lots of shades and blends and, you know, lots of effects, really, you know.
But I would imagine, you know, like how old is Copenhagen roughly, like age-wise?
That's a good question. Since, I don't know, 1400s, 1500s.
Yeah, so when you've got a community that's that old, you know, there's a whole different design aesthetic, because you've got old buildings and all of this different stuff that's influencing it. So I can totally see that. And, you know, in Paris, historically, has always been a little bit flamboyant for European country as far as style and aesthetic goes. So, I think that's a valid, probably very helpful point to people newer in the trade to pick up from you, is that you kind of do have to cater to the market that you're in. And become really good at that versus trying to be like, you know, the first thing I see almost everyone going into is the casual lettering. And it always makes me laugh because it's like, that's going that's going to be like 5 to 10% of your business. Even if you push it, you know, like there's there's just not that much of a market for it, you know?
No, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it was the same for me, you know, because I come from a graffiti background, and when I was curious about sign painting, you saw all this like script and casual, and I was like, "Oh, this looks fun." And then I figured it had a lot in common with like hand style and graffiti. So obviously, I started doing a lot of casuals in the beginning, and actually, I must say I used it a lot the first year or so because I did a lot of menu work, like for cafes. And then I just freestyled casuals, and it was really good because I didn't practice so many alphabets. I just made shitty menus in Copenhagen. But I learned, you know, to do the casual styles. And now, you know, I can't remember when I last time made a casual sign, a style for a sign, you know. I mean, sometimes you're at a job and they ask, can you write toilet on the toilet door? And then you do it in a casual or something like this. Yeah, but I mean, at the moment, actually, speaking of these, like, you know, local differences, you know, in Paris, they have a lot of like Art Deco style signs, like from back in the days, from like the 20s, 30s, whatever, beginning of the 20th century. And, you know, I've always loved these Art Deco styles. And I haven't been able to ever find a job or a project where I could like sneak that style in, like, let's do it like this. And now I am working on this like massive sign, you know, I don't know what you call this in feet, but it's like 3.5 meters. It's I
think that's like 10 feet maybe.
Yeah, something like this.
Okay.
So something like this. And it's I get away with doing it in like total Art Deco style. I'm like so excited to do this, and it's like if you've seen my work, you know, I work a lot in like 2 or 3 colors maximum, you know. And this sign is like full on Art Deco style with loads of borders and details, and it's like 12, 13 different colors, you know. And I'm like totally out of my comfort zone. And I'm so excited to actually do an Art Deco style sign.
You know, though, that's a valid point too. Years and years ago, I had this old timer tell me, you know, I was asking, well, how do you get so much of that type of work or that type of work? You know, because I'm bored doing what I'm doing. And he said, whatever you put in, and this was pre-internet, so it's like whatever you put in the showroom, that's the work you're going to get. And so he was doing a ton of gold leaf, and sure enough, in the front of his shop, like every sample had gold leaf on it. And so people would walk in and they'd want a normal sign, and then they'd look at the gold and go, holy crap, that's amazing. And then they'd be like, how much for that? So now that everything is internet, as far as your storefront is internet now, but you know, I guarantee you put that Art Deco piece front and center on your website, and you'll start getting more of that work because people see it. The average. I had this conversation yesterday with the client on the job I was working on this big old safe door thing, and we were talking about that. She's a photographer, and she was saying that what a difficulty she has because clients, the average person has a really hard time picturing stuff. And so you've got to show them. You can't just say, hey, why don't we do this? You've got to show them. And that's, I think, why it's so important to focus on our portfolios, you know, on our websites, which I desperately need to update mine, but, you know, but it's so important because it's like, if somebody's running their business, like they've got a bakery, let's say, and they're like, okay, we need a new sign. Their tunnel vision is to get that sign made. And they're only going to request what they can picture happening. And if you have enough stuff laid out for them to click through and be like, oh, well, there's a lot of options I never considered, then you can really tap into doing some creative stuff for them.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And that's also like, you know, doing this sign here in like all these like different colors and bright colors and like a pretty like detailed color palette. I do it because I really like to do this style of Art Deco lettering, and also it's like good to push myself to do something else than usually. But I am such a like super aesthetic nerd. Like I really like, you know, like minimal stuff. You know, when I see like letters which are good designed by hand, painted, black on white, I'm like, you know, I get chills. You know, it's like, yes, strong letter forms. You know, I love it so much.
But see, that just screams Denmark to me, hearing that. I think that's part of your culture out there too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like the Scandinavian minimalism. And sometimes I've had clients, you know, and we talk about designs, and they're like, yeah, and I would like if you could do some green and yellow, like here. Some. It's like, no, I don't do that. It's like, what? No, haven't you seen my work? I don't do colors. And, you know, maybe I'm busy and I have a lot of, maybe it's not a very interesting project and I am able to say stuff like this with a slight sense of irony, but also like, it's true. I don't want to paint that.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's funny too, because, you know, in the United States, like, everything here is like rock and roll, you know, like it's bold and it's in your face and it's screaming for attention because the next person is screaming for attention too. And it's just, we have our own dysfunction here. That's, it's hilarious. It's fun. It's, you know, it is fun.
I mean, I remember the letterhead meet in Quebec City with Pierre Tardif, and there were a lot of like different workshops. It was a really cool letterhead meet because instead of all these workshops, you have to sign up and you are in another room away from the whole meet. It was just open space with workshops in different corners.
Yeah.
And there was actually a lot of, not a lot, there was a couple of workshops in this like 3D, you know, how you shape the you know, signs out of like 3-dimensional material.
Okay.
And I don't know, like what do you say, styrofoam? Is that the name? Yeah. And there was like a big part of these workshops, like, that's so interesting, you know, working like this, it's because you need to be able to, as you say, like the next sign is just as rock and roll, you know? You need to be able to just work in like all these like voluptuous ways, you know?
Yeah,
it has to look like gold and 3-dimensional and you know, you have to, you know, airbrush it and go leaf it and, you know, it has to be like this.
Yeah, it has to be over the top.
I'm in Copenhagen. It's like my clients, they're like, yeah, can you paint the lettering in white here on the black background? It's like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, you know, here in the United States, some of the best signs you can see in all of the United States are in like Disney World.
Oh, yeah. I've seen.
Some of the best sign painters that have ever lived have worked in the Disney World sign shops, you know, and you go down there and you see the gold leaf on glass and you see the signs, but it's almost a cartoonish version of like Main Street America. But I think that ended up affecting Main Street America, where all of the sign guys eventually saw those signs in like Signcraft magazine, or they went to Disney in person and they're like, oh my God. But it kept like raising everything up and up and up to where like now to get a sign to look really good and to be effective, you got to like really bring it.
Yeah. And again, you know, it's like, the styles are so, you know, shaped by history, really, you know, it's the history of each country which has shaped the sign styles. And for example, let's take like Italy, for example. Italy, the lettering in Italian signs are super weird. They are like, it's like without any respect of all typographic laws, you know, it's just like crazy. and it looks amazing, you know. It's in gold, or it's in stone, carved in stone, or whatever. And it's like, how come, you know, how come these signs are so, like, the lettering is so weird, you know? How could they get away with it? And, you know, of course it's history, you know, but I think it's because in a lot of other countries, if you were making signs, you have an education in sign making or lettering, and you do it like that way. And I think in Italy, you know, a lot of local artists, they'll just make a sign.
Yeah.
You know,
While he's drinking cappuccino and smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. And therefore there were no, like, you know, there were no, like, rules or laws. You could just, like, go crazy.
Yeah.
And all these amazing signs are filled filled with the streets of Italy.
Awesome.
And in the UK, it's a lot different. You know, it's a very traditional country. You've got all this Roman capitals and copper plate styles, and you don't see that crazy artistic letter forms at all. And, you know, it's the history of the country which and eventually shapes the sign styles, I guess.
Yeah, I think the most creative area in the United States that I see is what we call window splashes, where they'll paint on storefront windows. You know, you go to certain towns where there's a guy who's, like, really dialed in doing his stuff, and you're just like, how in the world are you coming up with this on windows? It's amazing, you know, like cartoon characters and big prismatic letters, and you know, and the guys that are dialed in, you know, it's spectacular looking stuff. There's a guy out in I think it was out towards Phoenix, Arizona. My friend Jess and I were doing a job out that direction, and he knew who the guy was. This window splash guy, but, like, you had to go look at it closely because it was almost like really high quality digital print looking stuff. And this guy's just busting it out with, you know, some water-based paints on glass. And, and you're just like, I've never seen this quality on glass. This is crazy.
No, But, you know, these guys, they have been just banging out those windows on a daily basis for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, you know, and it's all they do. And they can do it, like, blindfolded, and it would look sick. And I have massive respect for people, you know, who work like this. Especially coming from a design background, you know, I mean, I rarely do, like, just scratch layout and just freehand lettering, you know. I do it on very simple layouts, but I always design the lettering, you know, on paper, transfer it and paint it, and it's how I work. And you see these guys just doing, like, freehand scratch layout on massive windows, and everything is layout so well. The colors are on point, and the letter forms are, like, good.
It is such a small percentage of people out there that can do that and do it well. And it's ironic because I think the average person thinks when you say sign painting that that's what's occurring. And they don't realize that, no, there's hours of designing it and drawing out patterns and transferring patterns and all of that. But that being said, I mean, there is a handful of people still out there that can just, like, walk up, sketch it, and do it. But they're very few and far between.
There is, I mean, some of the most fascinating work I've seen is in London, where I have, you know, passed by a fascia, and you can see the guidelines are still, you know, left on the fascia, and you see, like, it looks the same as you said with the window splashes. You know, it looks like vinyl. When you come up close, and it's like, my God, it's so crispy clean, this lettering. And then you see the guidelines, like, top and bottom. It's like, oh my God, he's done it on the spot. And then you see, like, just like maybe just the chalk lines from a scratch layout. It's like, my God, it's freehanded. And, you know, the way of working, and maybe the fascia is, like, again, like 10, 20 feet. And, you know, some sign painter who has been doing this for 40 years, he just come with his chalk lines and just top, bottom, scratch layout, and he do, like, a fascia with Roman capitals and a day's work or half a day's work. It would take me, like, 2 days just to design that.
Well, what's funny, like, too, is what you're describing is, like, if you go down into San Antonio, into some of the neighborhoods where the Mexican sign painters are working, you'll see some really, really beautifully executed stuff. And then on the next building, you'll see someone, they not only drew their baselines and stuff, but like they carved it in there practically. And you'll see from left to right, they started at the left and then they run out of room on the right side of the building. So the letters get really squished. So, I mean, it's all over the board, there are people out there that have really perfected that approach. And then there are people out there who have not.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's also like, I think it's kind of charming that you can see that. You see the spacing gets a little bit more narrow to the end of the word, And
it's got its
the opposite.
Place.
Maybe the first E, it's really narrow. And then you see the last E's are a little bit more wide because they need to fill out the space. And I think it's really charming,
Yeah, for
and also
sure.
like for example, when you see old ghost signs and sometimes you're able to see when the sign painter thinned the paint because it gets more and more opaque and then it's opaque, and then it's like every third letter, it's more transparent and then it gets more thick.
Yeah. So it was like a hot day. So on every third letter, they're adding more thinner.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's like, you can see that when the sign ages, And I mean, as a nerd, I'm totally like romantic about it. I think it's like so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think how you come into the trade affects a lot too, because like I've done it a variety of times. I really dislike figuring it out on site.
Yeah.
It stresses me out. I don't enjoy the process. I love being able to work out the ideas on paper in the studio in a relaxed environment. I got my music going and I'm just like, okay, I'm working out the ideas. And then when it's kind of paint, it's just show up and execute. And, I really enjoy that. But that's also how I, got exposed to all of this work in my dad's shop, because everything was very, you couldn't wing it, especially in the very early days, we were working on brand new vehicles, brand new cars and trucks. And it's like, no one's going to want you to take their $20,000 Suburban or whatever it cost back then and just like wing it. Like you had to really think through and design it. And, and that's my background. Whereas I suppose if my dad was, let's say, window splash guy, I might be really comfortable with, I'm just going to run a Stabilo pencil and I'm going to just start painting and then collect my money and go home, I imagine it would be different. But for me, it's like every step of the design process has been very methodical from day one since I was like a young teenager. So it's like, that's all I really know. And I'm not comfortable once I get out of that.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, it's a bit the same, but it's also, I mean, as coming from a graphic design background, you have this sort of, you look at things, it's actually not an advantage when you're a traditional sign painter to come from a digital design background, because your perception of how the result is supposed to look is wrong, it's false.
Yeah, it's distorted,
Yeah, it's not supposed to look perfect. It is supposed that the two O's are not supposed to be the same,
Right.
It's supposed to be looking, that O is okay when it's not like round. And so coming from a design background, I had to sort of like understand how does things look when you paint it and draw it by hand. And then what I really, really like about working with this, like with lettering and sign painting, it is this process of drawing, this massive Art Deco sign, I draw it like, in its right size. So it's quite big pieces of paper that I'm like shuffling around on the light table. and it takes days for me to complete this sign. And would it be cool to just chalk it out on the panel? Yes, it would. But
You're not going to get the same result.
No, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And I really, really like the process of like cleaning it. It's a big drawing. I get up on a chair and I look down, so I'm able to judge the spacing between the letters. And I put it back on the light table and I clean it up and I cut up the paper and tape it together and fix the spacing. All this, before, getting the layout onto the sign, and, mix the paint and match the colors. And then the fun begins, it's then for me, when I'm painting, it's very much a meditative state.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I mean, I'm a total addict to my iPhone. I don't even want to check how many hours I look on this ridiculous screen a day. But when I'm painting, time really stops. And I mean, sometimes it was also how I got into this. It's noticing time stops when I'm painting. And to this day, I can still start painting a sign and just sit and paint, and all of a sudden I was like, fuck, 2-3 hours just gone by. I haven't even thought about eating, drinking, or even looking at my phone. And it's like, my God, I love this, Then make some coffee and look at my phone, make an Instagram story, and then keep painting. But it's I mean, for me, all the prep work, drawing and designing and making everything, nice, also makes it more relaxing for me. So you said you get stressed out if you have to design something from scratch at a job, and I guess it's a little bit the same. Whenever I know, I can trust that this has been designed well because I did it. I spent 2 days doing it.
Yeah, right.
That then I can relax painting. I could focus on all the fun stuff. Or the Yeah. So this.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm trying to work on myself in recent months too, is being fully engaged and involved with what's happening right now.
Yeah.
As opposed to getting caught up in attachment to the past or getting caught up in the anxiety about what's coming in the future. Just like what is happening right now, what's happening today. What can I feasibly accomplish and get done today, but also how do I enjoy that? And, that's in line with what you're saying. If you've designed it in the studio, you've worked out all your ideas, you've settled in a place where you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be good. Then when you go out and paint, you're actually able to just dive in and be like, all right, I'm going to put on my headphones, I'm going to mix the paint, and I'm gone.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, finding this sort of balance of, accepting the past and not being anxious about the future, but still sort of being able to, live between these two time zones. Yeah. And then being present and work and live in the moment. I mean, I've tried loads of different things before I started painting signs, and the feeling of doing something which it makes me happy. I am relaxed. It feels like meditation. I can actually, when I am in a good work mode, I can work non-stop, I have to tell at 2 a.m. I'm I need to go home now. And I'll drive home all happy and can't wait to get up and continue this, Yeah. And I feel so, privileged to have found the combination of working with something which makes you happy, you think it's fun. And then on top of that, I don't even need to meditate or do yoga or whatever, I'm just I'm in Zen. I'm in a sign painting Zen state of mind,
Well, I have to do both. I haven't mastered getting all of it completely from sign painting, but I'm definitely a daily meditator and have been for years. And that keeps nice. That keeps me relatively sane, but still crazy enough to be, having fun, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, I had like a large part of my life. I was an addict and I was an alcoholic. So, I mean, I quit that in my early 30s, and then I started painting signs. And if you want to be successful as sober and clean, you need to find some substitute which is sort of healthy, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
for
some people, they quit alcohol and then they start training like maniacs, and they get like injuries and everything is
sure.
shit. Or you, I don't know, maybe you start, chain smoking.
I have the same background, and
Oh yeah.
for myself, you have to address why you're an addict. You have to deal with that, and there is something to deal with if you are. Like you have to confront that. You have to hit it head on, and you have to deal with it before you can move forward. Otherwise, you're just going to end up replacing whatever addiction you're fighting with another one. And I've seen it thousands of times over of people who've like, okay, you're not an alcoholic anymore, or you're not a drug addict anymore, but look at this other crazy shit you're into now.
Yeah, this is, I mean, this is why personally it took a lot of years to finally make a strong decision to quit. Was because, I was fearing, the demons, you have to confront the demons, and you have to understand them, and you have to, learn how to live with them, and first after that you can move on, really. And for me, it was like it took a lot of years to learn, not to learn, but how can you say, like, be strong enough to face those demons. And then after that you have a lot of work, and then after that then you can start focusing on getting some healthy addictions like sign painting or meditation or yoga or whatnot.
The big game changer for me was committing to and sticking with a genuine regular meditation process. Once I started doing that, I was able to really start managing some of the other issues and things I had to confront. And everybody's got their own thing. It's not like I'm saying this is what someone should do. I just, for me, that was, I think the leg up I needed to like really be like, okay, now I can start really breaking this stuff down and figuring out where did I go off course, and what am I doing? Why am I doing this stuff? Is there even a reason I'm doing it? Some of it just becomes habit, just becomes that's how I cope with life, or how I deal with things. This is this thing that I do. And it's like, you got to slow yourself down at some point and ask yourself, like, is this serving me? Is this helping me in any way? Is this something I even enjoy doing anymore? And if it's not, then you just got to move on and let it go.
I mean, I'm so happy that I found sign painting, because otherwise I don't think I would have been, sober to this day. I would have relapsed, and it's because, I mean, to find something which you can, do more or less constantly, and it gives you all these, you can make a living from it. It makes you happy. You feel,
It's a lot of positives.
Relaxed. It's a lot of positives, To find something like this, it's really difficult. I have a good friend, and he also stayed sober and clean for 6 or 7 years, and he became a monk, and he was in Nepal as well.
Awesome.
He was in India and Nepal, and he became a monk, and this was his like outlet. 1 second, I need to add some. I need to charge the computer. 1 second.
Okay.
And we're up. Okay. Well, eventually, being a monk wasn't, how can you say, it wasn't the right thing for him. So he relapsed, and now he's a full-blown addict again.
That's terrible.
And he was so pure. He was like he was a monk. And I was like, my God, is this the way, should I become a monk, or what am I doing? Here I am, just like doing digital print and vinyl. It was like, what is this? What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
But now I understand that to replace an addiction, which you probably need to do somehow, if you want to let it go, you need to find something where you can still maintain a normal life, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's the balance. First is we.
And I think that is too a good example of, you have to get at the root. You have to figure out, like, why am I doing this? Is it just the habit that I grew up around? Is it, I'm really unhappy about this event that happened years ago? What is it? And then come to terms with it and move forward. And if you don't, you can go become a monk in the Himalayas and, meditate and all of that. But if you're not being real with yourself about whatever that unhappiness is that's getting you to do this self-destructive thing over and over, you will go back to it, because nothing's going to fill that hole except you.
No, exactly. Yeah, and this is also what I've learned. And now, especially, the older I get, I can look back and I can see, first of all, why it took me so long to quit. And second of all, how much work I did to face those problems, And it was, I worked really hard to be where I am now, not only like working with what I'm doing, but like with myself. And now I can see all the, the payoff.
Right.
With my business as well, with my, like personally. And it feels super, it feels so good,
Yeah,
that you can look and you can see, like, man, I wouldn't have it any other way, but I wish I just, like, I wish I knew this earlier, because the key is you gotta work. You gotta work hard.
You gotta grab a shovel and dig your way out.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
No one's going to hand you a ladder in the hole. No one's going to, like, drop a rope down there and pull you out. You've got to, like, dig your way out.
Dig your way up. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now, it's the first couple of years are really, they're really tough and rough. But I hear, like, people who've been, like, sober and clean for 25, 30 years, and they'll tell me, like, it gets better every day. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, and I think the other element that I've seen in others, the people that kind of thrive afterwards, are the people that devote a certain amount of their time to helping other people.
Oh yeah,
I think
true.
that is a real factor too. And you hear it all the time, and it becomes kind of a cliche. But when you're doing something to help other people, then you're immediately taking that focus off of yourself. And what about me? What about this thing? And all this stuff. And it also puts things in perspective that, everyone has challenges. Other people have challenges way bigger than what your perceived challenges are. And I think that's also a big factor in staying healthy.
Yeah. I mean, just like not long ago, an old friend of mine, he visited, and I was, like, struggling with this back pain, and I was feeling a little pity, and then he came, and then he was telling me, just like casually, like, he almost died he was in a coma with this, like, serious disease, so he was, like, almost dead. And then him and his girlfriend, they had, like, 5 or 6 abortions, and now they finally got child number 2. And it was like, it was just such big things, I'm like,
big
why?
Stuff.
Like, back pain, and, like, he almost died. I really needed to hear that, because It's like it puts your own sort of problems in perspective. And if you're constantly in your own head and like everything evolves around yourself, you don't get that perspective, you know?
Yeah, right.
And that's really healthy for yourself, you know, because you really forget, you know. I definitely didn't feel my back pain when he was telling me about
there you go.
his, I was like, oh my God.
And that's kind of a metaphor, really. I mean, it's like, you know, when you take the focus off yourself, your problems kind of, you know, minimize or even disappear.
Yeah, it's really good.
So tell me this, because I don't always remember to do this. I did an episode the other day and I forgot to do this, but I really like asking people what they're listening to in the studio. Like, so like, what have you been listening to? And
yeah. You know, I listen to a lot of different music, but maybe 90% of the music I listen to, it's like house music, or I'm not gonna say the word techno because people have the wrong interpretation of what that is. But here in Europe, techno is a lot of different things. But so this is what I listen to, and I will listen to it from I ride my bike to work until I ride my bike home from work, like all day long. It
what
keeps
would be
me
an
going,
example?
you know?
Like what? Give me a couple of band names I can pull up on Spotify or something.
Okay, yeah. So like at the moment, I'm listening a lot to this DJ. He's called Yoku, and it's like Yokoo, Yoku. Like
okay.
Yoku. Yeah, and then there is another artist. He's called Christian Löffler, and he's from Berlin.
Okay.
And Christian with a CH, and then it's Loeffler.
Okay.
And last one could be, this is an artist who definitely keeps me sober and clean and makes me able to get through stressful times. It's also a German producer. He's called Traumprinz, and Traum means dream in Germany. It's like TRAUM.
Okay.
Prince, like in Prince.
Okay. Trump.
He's it's really like deep, deep house and techno, and I mean I come from a background doing a lot of clubbing and going out to raves and doing a lot of drugs and all that fun stuff. But this music, it's just sometimes you have like periods of time where you listen to some hip hop and you listen to some breaks and you listen to some soul. But I just have not stopped listening to house music since I was, 18 or 17. So
that's your thing.
That's just my thing. And sometimes when I'm like working on site, I would be like concentrating on painting a window with my headphones on, doing this traditional work. And I bet people they're like, he's probably listening to some old jazz music or some blues. And I'm just like...
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, people's musical tastes fascinate me. Let me see. Let me pull up my Spotify because that'll jog my memory. So binging lately on old 70s rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
I really like George Harrison. From the Beatles. Been revisiting the band Rush, Canadian band that I've listened to a lot over the years. Really great lyrics. Old 70s and 80s rock band.
Okay.
And let's see, what else would it pop up here?
I mean, when I grew up with this hippie dad, and I would listen to like loads of blues and rock, or like Led Zeppelin and Blue Oyster Cult and Deep Purple and lots of stuff like this, Black Sabbath.
Yeah, there's a playlist I play a lot on Spotify. It's called, where did it go? I just saw it. 70s ultimate rock classics.
Oh yeah.
And then there's another one that my friend Steve put together that is a really great one. It's called Yacht Rock Dance Party.
Oh yeah, yacht rock. I used to listen to a lot of this. This is such a cool genre.
Yeah, it's like, super
like Toto and
yeah. It's like if you're in a bad mood, you can't be in a bad mood listening to that while you're working because it's just goofy, upbeat so songs. Nice. It's fun stuff. So that's for probably the last 2 to 3 weeks. Probably what I've been binging on most. Yeah. I also there's a band from. Oh gosh, I don't remember. There's somewhere from somewhere in Africa, like Northern Africa, called Tinariwen.
I don't even know that.
Tinarwin, I believe. Tinariwen.
Tinariwen. Okay.
Yeah. Look. Oh, Tinariwen. Tinariwen.
Okay.
And they're kind of this bluesy thing that's all their own. I got to see them in Dallas a couple years back.
Oh yeah.
And they dress in all of their traditional garb. Sahara. I'm thinking Sahara is where they're from, but I'm not sure.
It's like desert blues.
Yes.
Is it like desert blues?
It's like desert.
I love that. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing, but like their whole genre.
I've been to a it's so
super good.
I love
dig them up. If you like that, dig them up. You might really enjoy them.
Okay.
Most of their songs are in their native language, so. I don't know what they're singing about,
and are the songs like very long? You know, are they like?
They've got some live ones that are pretty long, but they've got album cuts and they do international tours and stuff. So it's a little more. I don't think radio friendly is the right word because I can't imagine anyone playing them. But super interesting, good stuff. I listen to them a lot while I'm working out back.
Nice. Yeah, I remember listening to some of this desert blues. I forget the names now because it's all African names and hard to pronounce. But somehow, it has, because of the duration of the track, maybe a track is like 10 minutes or 12 minutes. And it's very like some of it, even though it's like blues, it has a lot of repetitive like tones, maybe the drums are super like trance style drums. And maybe it's a bit silly comparison, but it has something in common with like techno and house music because it's like
everything's connected in one way or another. So I don't think that's silly. I think there's probably so much that goes into the influence of a band like that. Who knows? Like maybe their drummer is like a techno freak and he just works it in there. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, this has been really great. I'm really glad that we were able to connect. I know some of our scheduling stuff was up and down over the last week.
I'm happy we could make it happen. Actually, when we said to do it today, I was like, "Fuck! I forgot the charger to my MacBook, and it was out of battery." And then coincidentally, a friend of mine, he just visited like an hour before we were supposed to talk. And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to postpone this. And my charger is at home. And it's like, you can borrow my charger. And then I was like able to charge my MacBook like half full. And then he left. And then when he was supposed to get the charger, he was like, hey, I have 2 chargers. I accidentally took a charger at this advertising agency he's working. I was like, my God, the universe.
The universe provides.
So I got the second charger. I'm going to deliver it to him tomorrow. But I ran out of battery and it saved our show here. So it's so nice. Yeah.
That's great. Well,
but
cool.
Yeah, it's been really nice to chat with you.
Yeah, you too. And, let's stay in touch. I'm anxious to see that Art Deco sign once you post it. That'll be a thing to look for.
It's going to be I don't even know how to post it. It's gonna fuck off my feed because it's like 12 colors. But yeah, I'm excited to show it as well, and it's really fun to work on. I was making a color test today on the letterforms, doing like this like split 3D block shade, and like everything is like with loads of shades and colors. Like, my God, it looks so three-dimensional. It's like, this is what everyone else does. Now I understand.
Awesome.
But no, it's like, yeah.
Well, I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Okay, Hep Cats. This is the part of the show where we play a song from the Arhoolie archive, so pay attention. You can get these tunes from the legendary Arhoolie Records at arhoolie.com. Now sit back, open up some One Shot, crank up the volume, and expand your minds, babies.
In the Morelos Mountains, campesinos are planting their fields, where the ghost of Zapata rides a horse that can still outrun the wheel. High in the sky above and clear out of sight, where the free Mexican Air Force flying tonight. In the city of San Antonio, a cowboy is cooling his heels, remembering that God gave us herbs and the fruits of the field. But a criminal law that makes outlaws of those seeking light. Take the free Mexican Air Force, Mescalito riding his white horse. The free Mexican Air Force is flying tonight, flying so high. How strange that an innocent herb causes money to burn. They'll jail you or kill you for making those rich fat cats squirm. They're the fools who make rules with no difference between wrong or right, who make the free Mexican Air Force fly home tonight. Uncle Sam in his misery put a nix on the fields of Guerrero. He said, shoot down all gringos in wetbacks who dare wear sombrero. But the borders of evil will fall to the smugglers of light. And the free Mexican Air Force, Mescalito riding his white horse. The free Mexican Air Force is flying tonight, flying so high. While we smoking colitas, federales are loading their guns, blowing smoke from their six-shooters, spinning their barrels for fun. Contrabandistas, banditos of light, and the free Mexican Air Force is flying tonight. Oh, the law wants it all 'cause they think that the wild we can free. Freedom for us is a prison for the rulers of might. And the free Mexican Air Force, Mescalito riding his white horse. The free Mexican Air Force is flying tonight, flying so high.